Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest Avon and Somerset Police Federation podcast. Happy summer. I'm here with Tom Gent, who is the chair of Avon and Somerset Police Federation. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Yes, fresh back
Good
from leave.
stuff. Oh, well, even better. I'm sure you're glad to be back and back at it as well as we head towards September. Um, I'll start off by speaking to you about recent events, Tom, and the very sad news over recent days and we're recording this just days after two of your colleagues in Cleveland sadly were killed on duty in the early hours of the morning. I won't go into specifics of the incident, but what I will do is invite you to say what you're feeling, what your colleagues are feeling about an incident. Geographically, it's a way away, but we're all part of the police family, aren't we?
Oh, 100%, yeah. And I don't think it matters where something like that's happened. You feel it because you understand the dangers that officers face every day when they go out on shift. Yeah, you understand the kind of sacrifices officers make to their families when you go out, when you say bye to your loved ones, and everyone should come home at the end of the shift. It's your worst nightmare to hear something like that happen, and so it's just so tragic, and to hear kind of what well-loved officers they were. Yeah, and our thoughts go to all our colleagues in Cleveland as well. He must be really feeling it. Yeah, just very sad, but a tiny bit of pride there as well in seeing the support that the police family are giving, and actually also the public are giving as well. I think, which is fair to say, which we don't always see in policing, and but there's no doubt that the public do recognise the sacrifices that police officers make.
I mean, I can speak because obviously, as you know, I work with Cleveland Police Federation as well, and I've been speaking to their chair and secretary, who are so appreciative of all the messages of support from federations, from fellow officers, from other unions and staff associations across the country, and from the public. And we've seen, again, who knows what the figure will be by the time this podcast comes out, but hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds pledged towards the families of officers. Now, the money is one thing and it's appreciated, and but it's also a show of, as you say, a show of support, a show of solidarity with the families of Tom Clough and Matt as well. That that they are remembered and their sacrifice is not forgotten.
Yeah, and that is so important. That feeling of the police family, and that recognition of the work we do, because so tragic that incident, but that could happen in Avon and Somerset just as easily. Officers are out there 24/7. She did have a sponsorship myself Saturday night, and yeah, you're out there. You don't know what's going to happen, what you're going to face, but you turn up and you put yourself out there every shift. So yeah.
It's a cliche, isn't it? But I mean, I imagine it's true. You sort of hug your loved ones a little bit tighter that morning, that evening, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you should remember that. Remember what's important, and our loved ones, and the sacrifices we make, and just making sure that we appreciate the important things in life. And I do think that public support we've seen as well with the Andrew Harper case and that petition, over 1 million votes. Sorry, not votes, over 1 million people signing up, kind of just shows how people feel about police officers giving that ultimate sacrifice.
Well, I was going to move on to that because it's a real, again, obviously a very bad time and a bad thing and a bad experience, but to have 1 million, 1.1, I think we're nearly at million people sign something to say police officers are important, they should be looked after. That must mean something. When the government were initially going to go, no, you're not, you're as normal as everyone else, for the government to have to change their course, we think, on the basis of public support for police officers, that must, especially in these dark few days, that must really mean something to you all.
Yeah, it does, and it does show, to show that support, and actually getting to something tangible from that support, and hats off to the chair of the Federation of Thames Valley, Eileen, who's done.
Aileen, we've got to get her name
Aileen.
right, Tom.
Oh no,
Aileen,
I'll
I'll
be
get
in
in
trouble
trouble.
next time I see her. Yeah. But she's got our support as well. She's got the support of kind of the whole of the Police Federation, the whole of the public, and actually it's pretty unprecedented that all the police chiefs signed a letter to the government about how important the issues are. So yeah, and we can see
it's very unprecedented. I was going to ask you, obviously your chief, Sarah Crew, was one of those that co-signed, countersigned, whatever you want to call it, the letter. That must mean something to you. Have you spoken to the chief about that?
Not yet, no. So just back from leave really, but I'm seeing her tomorrow, so I'm sure that'll be one of the things that comes up. And it is really important to feel that backing as well, because the Federation, we represent kind of police officers, frontline police officers, but it's really important you've got that support from the various police forces right at the top, and that understanding in government that how important it is and how police officers need to have that support. And we still haven't seen the results of that yet, so we're still want to keep the pressure on the Home Office and the government to alter the sentencing.
Well, as you know, Tom, I'm involved in that, and I can give you a cast iron guarantee that pressure will be kept on, and do watch social media and these spaces for what comes next. But obviously, as you will understand, as listeners and viewers will understand, we've taken a respectful pause on that campaign for a few days out of respect for your colleagues in Cleveland. So that's where we are with that at the moment, of course. So Tom, let's move on to police officer pay now, and we're just days away from the 3.5% police officer pay rise coming in on the 1st of September is when it comes in. But could have, should have been more, been better for police officers, because the independent, and I say independent with quote marks, the independent police pay review body recommended that you and your colleagues should get 3.9%, a recommendation which the government ignored. So first question, is 3.5% a good pay rise for police officers? The second question is, how do you feel that your government essentially said you're not worth that much, not worth 3.9?
Well, we're certainly asking for a lot more than 3.5, because police officers deserve more than 3.5 for everything they do. It was in line with other public sector pay awards. However, I think that's really important that the pay review body recommended 3.9 and we were awarded 3.5. It's only 0.4% difference, but for me, it's that principle, because we can't strike. So we need to be treated fairly, and we're one of the only pay review bodies where we haven't been treated fairly, and we haven't been given what the independent pay review body have recommended. Now we see MPs accept their independent pay review body year after year, wringing their hands saying, oh, we don't want that much, but we have to accept it even though it's above inflation. I can't remember what they got this year, but it's certainly more than that. But then when it comes to policing, they're like, oh no, we can't accept it because we can't afford it. It's like, well, yeah, you should be valuing policing, you should be investing in it, and you should accept the recommendations of that body.
They received a 5% pay rise effective the 1st of April 2026. Tom, there you go. Yeah. And you as a federation asked for 7% for your colleagues.
Yeah.
And your PRRB recommended 3.9. So does 3.5 feel a bit of a pay cut? You know, it's you can't get cut from what you haven't got yet, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, looking at what's happening with inflation and what's happening in the world, it could well be a real terms pay cut. Certainly not going to be much of a rise, a base case scenario. So yeah, we're certainly pushing for more. We'll be making those arguments again next year.
Doesn't it also prove that you know, and the federation did withdraw from officially being part of the PRRB 4 or 5 years ago, because it shows the pointlessness of it. They can say one thing and it can be completely ignored.
Yeah, and that's where the unfairness is, and that's where we need to keep pushing. And the federation does have. I know some people are like, we write a letter and you haven't got any power, but actually, when you look at some of the detail, because we had the rest day campaign protecting our rest days, and they gave pretty short shrift to the police chief's proposal around weakening our rest day protections. In fact, they've called some of the police pay practice exploitative, and that's in the independent report. That's not from the federation. So if you want a modern workforce, you need to pay it properly, and yeah, that's what we're pushing for.
But these are points that you'll raise with, we've mentioned previously with Sarah in your meeting upcoming. Are these Sarah Crew, I should say, Mom Crew, CC Crew? Are these points you'll be raising with the Chief Constable? Because we have seen, as we mentioned earlier, them get behind policing with the signatures for Andrew Harper and the early release. They can get behind policing a bit wider than that, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where we will look to push, and sometimes you want to see those actions as well as words. We've seen that with the letter, so we're really supportive of that. And we do have some success locally as well. One of the recommendations from the pay review was to increase paternity pay to 2 weeks. We'd already had that in Avon and Somerset, actually, through some discussions we've been having. But absolutely, we will be pushing for that support from Sarah, from the public, from our local MPs, because we need that support.
I think we've seen, as we mentioned earlier in this podcast, that the public are and do support police officers. The silent majority, as they're called, have not been so silent over the last sort of 4 weeks, 6 weeks. So something I think to hold on to as we move into sort of the new term, as it were. We're not at school, but when the MPs come back and conferences begin in the coming weeks. Something else that's emerged over the summer, in fact, quite a lot's happened since we've last spoken, Tom, is the accountability review. For a long time, people have said that 2 bites of the cherry, a criminal and a misconduct bite, that 12 months should be a time limit on police investigations, that the IOPC, there's no I in the IOPC. We could go on. Your view?
I think the review is long overdue. However, we have had previous reviews, and we do need to be a little bit mindful that timeliness isn't the only issue. Fairness is also an issue. So, we need to see a few details of this review before we kind of celebrate too much about streamlining it, that if that's at the expense of fairness. But there's no doubt that timeliness is a huge issue. The double jeopardy, triple jeopardy sometimes kind of rules.
What's your wish list? What's your wish list? If you could speak to, I think it's Dame Lynn Owens who's going to be leading it. What's your? If you could speak to Lynn, what would you say to her?
Firstly, a big dose of common sense. Sometimes, say an officer resigns, will continue the investigation for years, often, and often it's not about serious matters. Some things can be resolved quite early on at a lower level. The impact of it is huge. The cost to the public is huge. There's no doubt streamlining it and reducing those time limits is needed. The IOPC, pretty unaccountable themselves. They'll always look at the individual officer, rarely look at organisations. Where's the organisational accountability? If an officer's got, for example, 20 crimes and they drop the ball with one and don't investigate one that well and something terrible happens, that's because they've got 19 other crimes and an impossible workload. Well, whose decisions were they to give them that impossible workload? But things like that, I think, they need to be looked at, the whole system.
So some important points there. Do you have the chance? Will you have the chance to feed that back, or are you relying on passing that on to the National Federation who will feed that up the chain?
I certainly want the chance to feed it back. I haven't had an update yet. It's been relatively recently announced, so that's something I'll definitely be pushing on, because we need to be key stakeholders in that. We understand police officers, and we are seeing, because of the accountability rules, we're seeing officers be quite risk averse on the ground, making decisions based on the what if and that personal accountability, and that's not good for the public. It's not good for public safety. So it's really important.
Another government announcement over the summer is that supporting, or extra support for the mental health of police officers. We've talked about this before in a previous podcast, but rolling out the trauma tracker system, from what Avon and Somerset has been successfully running, 150 clinical for psychological risk assessments and lighter touch mental health checks will be available each year for officers and staff, signposting. Is this a positive based? And we're going to give Avon and Somerset credit here. This is a positive based on the work that you have done in your force.
Some of it is, yeah, and it is positive that there's that investment, that recognition. There needs to be that investment. One other thing I'd like to see is a bit more in the preventative world. That kind of, rather than waiting till officers need that support, what can we do to prevent them getting there? Things around resilience, maybe. I talked about that workload recently, and that stress. Some of that causes a lot of issues as well. So it's kind of understanding those problems and dealing with it before it's too late. Because it's all very well saying I'm struggling, but if I haven't got a supervisor, if I haven't got any cops, I'm going to send you out anyway because you haven't got any options. So,
what's the solution? I mean, you've been in that role as a sergeant and an inspector, a chief inspector role as well. What's the solution? Because there are only so many pieces on the chessboard. There's only so many deck chairs on the Titanic, and so on and so
yeah,
forth.
they are, but it's a false economy running people into the ground, isn't it? Because then they will go off sick and they won't be able to work as well as they want to work and deliver for the public.
If there aren't enough deck chairs, if there aren't enough chess pieces, what do you do?
Yeah, it's making the case to those that fund policing that we need more funding. It's making the case locally to ensure that those areas that are really kind of the dashboard's really flashing red are supported, and it's probably with the public as well, having some honest conversations that we can't do everything. There's some things we can't do, some things to our partners we can't do. We've talked about mental health in the last few years, and it's not always a police role to deal with that. Sometimes it should be mental health services and ambulance, social service, depending on the case. But yeah, those are the sort of things that we need to be doing.
So kind of starting to say, well, and policing's had a problem with this for a number of years, saying no to some bits or saying that's their issue. That's not service of last resort, can do cops and all this sort of stuff.
Well, that's a reality. If you've got finite funding, you need to prioritise, and we're terrible in the police at saying no, we can't do that. We need to prioritise here, and we see a lot of the issues of that fall to the front line, to the officers who end up burnt out, overworked, and with a bit of an impossible task. So we do need to understand our demand, and we can only do what we can do, is what I would always say to officers.
Well, a recent survey by Oscar Kilo, the mental health and caring side of the Home Office, shows that 56% of officers and staff, or police wellbeing services, Oscar Kilo, sorry, 56% of officers and staff report physical exhaustion, 44% report emotional exhaustion, and 45% report regular burnout because of their job. I'm guessing no surprise, and perhaps the only surprise might be that these figures aren't higher.
Yeah, they're quite scary figures, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're huge, and that's why I think we do need to take action. We do need to keep investing in it, and certainly we'll keep pushing the case locally and nationally as well, where we can, that it is recognised and officers are supported.
Okay, we'll finish for this podcast then, Tom, by just touching on your upcoming awards. We're not too far away now, again, depending on when you're listening or watching this or parts of this. Tell us about them. Give us a brief synopsis of what's going to happen and what we've got to look forward to. Yeah,
well, it's always great to kind of look at the positives of policing, and we talk about the stress, the risks officers take and all of that. We should also recognise all the good work that goes on, and that's something we're not always that good at in policing either. Though, to be fair to Avon Somerset, they do have some good events and they do invest in it. But it's something that I think you can't have too much kind of recognition for the work that I see going on day in, day out. So we've got various categories. The thing I like about them is that it's quite organic. It's officers have been nominated by their colleagues. It's kind of very sort of frontline focused, a little bit more recognition rather just the glamour jobs, because we see a lot of officers working extremely hard. So I was really keen. We've got an unsung hero category, for example. I'm going to read out some of the categories that we've got. That's what I was just getting up on the screen there. So we've got bravery, unsung hero, inspiration, detective,
Compassion Team of the Year, Supervisor of the Year, which I think should be you every year, Tom, but you never win it, but that's my vote. And Response Officer of the Year. So we've got some really, really good categories and really good winners who will be, and everyone's a winner, will be revealing them towards the beginning of October, ahead of the awards in mid-October.
Yeah.
So, Tom, you must be really looking forward to what is a great night in the middle of October.
Yes, fantastic event. So a proper award ceremony, really nice meal. Try and have a fairly sort of relaxed atmosphere there, as well as that recognition. A little bit, yeah, just a really nice event. Families are there, loved ones. I think that's really important as well. We talked about the sacrifices that they make and the support they give. Yeah, well supported by our senior officers, but a more relaxed kind of tone, and yeah, fantastic.
And our wonderful sponsors as well. We should credit them,
yes.
And we'll be crediting them on social media and traditional media as we run up to the event. So thank you to all our sponsors as well, and congratulations to all our winners. So Tom, unless there's anything else you want to add on this edition of the podcast, we'll see you all very soon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Cheers.